Begin with the confession, or you'll never get it out. Begin, I gave birth to a bin bag.
All the different voices I've imagined it in, wine conspiratorial, screaming heavenward, coyly, as if it were nothing but another of life's little surprises. Support group style, with a lack of shame I've worked for. And every time I pass a church, Father, Father, my child is a bin bag. Until now, though, I've said it to no one. What need is there ever to explain? I have begun to think, along with voice number 3, that perhaps this was how it was meant to be from the beginning. From the beginning, then, I was not one of the lucky ones. No outright tragedy, no noticeable deformities. I was just not the kind you'd single out to have their dreams come true. In time, I gave up on having dreams any different from anyone else's and wished for beauty, love, happiness, success, defined in all the usual ways. None of them visited me in any abundance, but I worked to believe that was a matter of chance only. Or it was about how I held myself, perhaps. Nothing inner. Yes, I had doubts, but I did all I could to shut them out, close them out of my windows, bolster my doors against them, like Kathy had shut out Heathcliff once her decision was made. And yes, on dark, stormy nights, I would sense them prowling around outside and feel uncertain that I'd always be able to stop them from tumbling in. Then I met him, and all my doubts were stripped from me. A tourist pier in Europe that gave out onto a crop of rocks, on top of which some exalted figure stood, unimpressed as waves spewed across his bronze feet. A gusty February. I missed a step, as I often do, and with no premonition at all, fell headlong. operating on misguided impulse. My arm flung my digital camera forward, and from where I lay there on the cool flagstones, I saw it fall onto a brown loafer, coming to nestle inside the leather rim curled around the toe, like some kind of advertisement. Looking up, I saw the owner of the loafer was mid-brown and sturdy as his shoe. Was it that sturdiness that enchanted me? The calm with which he raised up his foot so I could reclaim my camera? I said nothing, but fearing my speechlessness would be seen as ingratitude, kept my body bent towards his foot in a kind of bow. Folded forward like that, I saw the sunlight turn the concrete slabs to 1,000 tiny dancing rainbows. Love in the past had been torturous. One long Sisyphean argument spread out over 3 or 4 different men who may as well have been one and the same. But now the concept of effort never entered my head. Nor did I worry that I didn't deserve a romance of this kind. We had borrowed each other's eyes, most likely. It had been ordained, and there was no choice in the thing. I think it was that which made it so glorious. When we made love, his body above me was like a logical symbol, meaning necessarily so. A racehorse in the early zoetropes, every frame, every thrust driving home the truth that we were moving in perfect line with nature. And in perfect line with nature, I conceived on our wedding night. Even before my waters broke and the brown stickiness went coursing down my leg, I felt something piercing my inside. None of the words for the various labour sensations I'd read of in books came close to describing that feeling. It was hard-edged and sharp, like nothing human could have been. You're experiencing discomfort, the midwife told me down the phone. It's perfectly normal. But it didn't feel normal. I knew from visiting terrible museums in Eastern Europe that it was possible to give birth to all kinds of beasts. But when I lay on the bed in the maternity ward and felt the heavy scrape go tracking along my insides, I knew this was no beast that could be preserved in a jar. This was something altogether less clinical. I watched as the same realization played out on the masked faces of those around me. The thing kept on coming. The transparent white plastic stained to an eerie fuchsia. And when finally she yanked it free onto the end of the bed, it looked half the size that I was. Nobody spoke. There were no screams to mark the passage of this atrocity into the world of the living. So the blue bodies stood around, looking in silence, and I looked too. My eyes didn't want to see, but I forced them, and what before had been terrible, blood-muddied shame inside me suddenly sunk through into something much quieter. Something I felt I had known for a long time. I gave birth to a bin bag. I gave birth to a sack of trash, a load of garbage, a neatly clothed junk pile, a spill of raw, cloying, mold-speckled filth, sheathed in thick, see-through plastic, and thoughtfully sealed with a double knot. This little load was one tiny fraction of all the rubbish I had produced over the course of my life, but it contained the essence of each individual bag. Sweaty, smelly, sprawling, hard and soft, jagged and bulked. Even when acceptance had dawned, still the impulse remained to be rid of it, to conveniently wedge it onto a passing trolley, or escort it down to one of the bins in the corridors with their pretty azure sacks. But it was ours. It was here to stay. I decided to name it Heathcliff. Like I always knew somewhere it would, my Heathcliff had eventually found his way in, and my Heathcliff was smeared in blood, dancing with maggots and stinking like the innermost chamber of an equatorial inferno. My Heathcliff was everything I despised in myself. Only now, I realised how lifeless all the babies I'd seen were in comparison. They pulled cute faces, sure, but they were pale and powdery, or at least so they were made to appear. Their selling point was everything that in a few years' time they would be blamed for. In a few years, they would become despicable. At least my gift was despicable from the beginning. It was teeming, crawling with appalling, despicable life. Without ever meaning to, I had made a terrible mess. Now I had to find a way to love it.